Oh, that music gets you pumped up, doesn't it? My name is Harper. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode. We're so excited. The first ever episode of Tokyo Daily by Where Do We Begin? Whether you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can see these fancy graphics all around us. It looks super cool, doesn't it? Or you're listening on your favorite podcast app, just like usual, or you're a new listener. Whatever situation you're in, we are delighted to have you here. As I said, my name is Harper. I'm one of the co-hosts today. One of my other co-hosts goes by the name of Lockie. How are you, Lockie?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Harps. You know, I'm a little bit confused at the moment. You know, one of the reasons I got into podcasting is I didn't have to show my face, as my mum always said. I've got a face for podcasting. But, you know, look, I'm good, and yeah, I'm just super excited. You know, it's great to see a familiar face, but then one not so familiar, Wacko Jacko Jackson. So for those that don't know, Jacko started off in the podcast. He was a pioneer of the podcasting game for us, and then he stepped aside for the last couple of months, but now he's back to jump on board for the Olympics, and I know Harper and I were super excited. Jacko, how are we?
Hey, mate. Yeah, I'm well. Bit keen for the Olympics. Love them. Very keen to get a few episodes down with you guys back on the potty, so I'm very keen to go. Last time I was here was for Denver Granger a few months ago, but keen to go get a few episodes in this month.
Oh, it is awesome. We are delighted to have you here. We're delighted to have all the listeners, our viewers here. It's really good. And Jackson is not the only kind of new addition. We've got to We've got to the Where Do We Begin team over here for this fortnight. We actually have some really, really special guests, expert guests on a whole range of sports, more than I can count. Really, I can only count to 3, but it doesn't matter. We've got one really good guest at the end of the show, actually a cracking interview, so stick around for that. But Lockie, do you reckon we should get into a bit of a review of what's happened already? Because there have been 2 days worth of events already, haven't there?
Yeah, there has, Harper, and I think we all know the biggest talking point in Australia the last couple of days. It is, of course, you know, the 2032 Olympics, and I've just been seeing on social media a wave. I've been seeing 20...
Hold on, I've got a sound effect for that. It's the elephant in the room. There we go. Keep going, Lockie.
So I've been seeing like 22 million Australians partying and celebrating, and then I've seen about 7 billion, the other 7 billion people asking, where the hell is Brisbane? But look, I'm super excited. You know, I can't wait. So fortunate that we're going to have an Olympic Games in our country in our lifetime. I don't think I'll be there competing, but, you know, it'll be absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, it is just going to be awesome. I think all 3 of us really share that opinion. Just 11 years from now, the clock's already ticking. The countdown is on to Brisbane 2032, 3,000 days or whatever it is. But we're keeping this really kind of snappy, this show. So we've got to move on to the next point. Opening ceremony, guys. In case you didn't know, it's tonight. I am pumped up. I'm really excited, really interested to see kind of how they do it all, because obviously no crowds, just a bunch of officials and delegates, including the Queensland Premier, which has been in the news recently. It's going to be from 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Go for about 3.5 hours tonight, so make sure you're tuning into that, and you can see our flag bearers, of course, Kate Campbell and Paddy Mills. It should be awesome. Hey, Lockie?
Yeah, mate, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And it's really interesting, though, because I remember like speaking on our podcast with like Brooke Stratton, like the athletics team doesn't even normally arrive for the opening ceremony anyway. So which I didn't realise that. So it's going to be a bit of a mismatch, but I'm super pumped, and I'm sure Jacko is too over there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a weird one having no crowd there. I mean, we sort of adjusted to having crowds back in Australia. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're all in lockdown, but yeah. Even watching the soccer the last few nights, they've had weird crowd noises in the background. So they sort of learned from Channel 7, I guess, here, to have the crowd noises in the back. So it is going to be definitely weird, but I feel they'll have the crowd noises to sort of go through that. But they won't be panning to the crowd, for instance, which would be very, very weird. It'll just be focused on the performance.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that all the big networks in America and stuff have been watching the Channel 7 football just to learn how to operate the crowd noises. And it's crazy, though, because Exactly, Harpsy boy. And it's just crazy, though, the fact that, like, the opening ceremony's on Friday, and I never realised this until I got a notification on my phone, but some events have already started. And so the first event that kicked off was the women's softball, and Japan beat Australia 8-1 with the mercy rule invoked. You know, I only thought the mercy rule was in play in under-14s footy or under-12s footy, but at the Olympic Games, it's just simply crazy. But it's good to see that the Aussie Spirit have already bounced back against Italy, beating them 1-0. And yeah, they've now got a rest day, but it's just crazy how they've already gotten into their matches and events.
Oh, yeah, it is absolutely nuts. They've got 5 group stage games each. There are 6 teams, Japan, the US, Canada, Australia, Mexico and Italy in the softball. They all play each other. Top 2 go to the gold medal match. So it was absolutely crucial for Australia to beat Italy in that one. And losing to Japan 8-1 is a bit of a drubbing, but losing to Japan wasn't really unexpected. They are a baseball, softball mad nation. They're the second highest ranked softball team in the world, and Australia, I think they're 8th or something, so there definitely is a big gap, but good to see Australia getting the win in the second one. Jackson, Lockie, you go.
I was just going to say, Harps, I'll tell you what, I reckon if we got Wii Sports baseball was released maybe 2 years earlier, I would have started it as a junior and I would have been out there playing. So, but look, it's okay, I'm zen. Jacko?
Yeah, another sport that kicked off early, which it always does in the Olympics. I found that out in like Beijing 2008, seeing the soccer start off before the actual opening ceremony. But yes, both the Matildas and the Olyroos played over the last 2 nights. The Matildas getting off to a cracker, beating our trans-Tasman rivals, New Zealand, 2-1, with great goals from Tamika Yallop and Sammy Kerr with a great header. And then the Olyroos winning 2-0 against Argentina, which is a bit of a shock. But we are always back our Olyroos. Very keen. I saw the second half of that one.
Marco Tilio, Jackson. The second goal from Marco Tilio. He's come on within about 30 seconds. His second touch of the ball, he scores this absolute perler from outside the box to seal the game.
It was amazing to see.
Yeah, amazing to see against the world powerhouses, Argentina. We'll find out in the interview a bit later that maybe Argentina aren't cracked up. They aren't all that they're cracked up to be, really, and they're not maybe rated a bit too highly. But anyway, Jackson, you go for it, man.
Yeah, in terms of the teams that the Matildas and the Olyroos will play, so the Matildas still have to play US, who are a powerhouse, and Sweden, who we'll get into a bit later. And then the Olyroos have to play Spain, which are packed full of Euro 2020 caliber players, as such as Pedri, who killed in the actual tournament. He's still eligible to be an under-23s player, which is amazing to see. And they have to play Egypt, who's kept Spain to a stalemate, which is amazing.
Nil all draw, really, yeah. Definitely an interesting result. And I heard a little stat that Dani Olmo and Pedri, they both played the Euros for Spain. They've both played lengthy club seasons. Combined, they've played over 120 games in the last 12 months, which is just extraordinary. Hey, Lockie.
Mate, absolutely crazy. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what I'm bringing to the podcast. You know, Jackson has the best memory in the world. He remembers the Olympics back in 2008 when he was 10, and Harper's provided the biggest microphone I've ever seen. I mean, Jesus, Harps, is that a double XL? It's a whopper.
Well, yeah, it's a whopper, all right. I usually got it on the stand, just leaning across here, but decided to go handheld, mix it up a bit for this episode. But some more kind of big news that has really come out. It's not so much to do with stuff happening on the field, more to do with stuff happening off the field. A show jumper and the equestrian, Jamie Kermond, an Aussie guy, 36 years old, got a positive test for cocaine, and he's been provisionally suspended from the game, so we're unlikely to see him doing much in Tokyo, which is a sad story, but we're probably not really our place to comment on that, so we'll move on. There was a really interesting article I actually read. I know Jackson's checked it out as well. Lockie may be of it as well. He hasn't told me. But it's on the Sydney Morning Herald, and it's by Chip Legrand, and he speaks about, he refers to this kind of report from a data company called Grace Note, and this is exclusive to the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, and they've got Australia winning 16 gold medals, our best, projected to be a best for us since Athens 2004, 40 medals overall, and that it's just going to be an absolutely huge result. Hey, Jackson.
Yeah, it definitely will be. So it also showed.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, actually, but like,
We're
predictions.
hoping. We're definitely hoping, but
We're hoping.
realistically, but they did show what medals they think we are going to get gold, silver, and bronze in. The one that sort of surprised me, which I will talk about a bit later, was the rugby sevens women's. They reckon we're going to get silver, but they didn't mention who would get gold, so I don't know what's going on there. I would love to hear who they got gold for that.
And another really interesting one, a bit of kind of breaking news at the time of recording. Kaylee McEwen, the data had her winning 3 gold medalists, and she's only 20 years old, which is absolutely nuts. But some kind of breaking news, I believe, if the reports are correct, she has pulled out of the 200-meter individual medley. She was the favourite for that. Jackson's shocked. He hasn't heard about this. She was the favourite for that, and she was like, absolute big dog of the swimming world. And she's cited heavy workload, really, competing in so many events. She's pulled out in something that she was widely expected to get a medal in, which is astonishing news.
I mean, it is her first Olympics. We should be okay with that, because let her try her hardest in the other two, and let's see her get a gold, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well said. And I know we spoke to 10 athletes who are all going to be winning gold before the game, so that's at least 10 gold guaranteed there. So I reckon that article's on the right track, Harps.
Oh, yeah, spot on. But actually, Lockie, I think you might throw this next bit over to you. So we've got a bit of a kind of moment of the game so far, a little section.
Yeah, we do, Harp. So obviously in the future, as you said, we've got 10 golds at least guaranteed. The article predicts 16, whereas whether there's 20, I've run the numbers, I've run the analytics. But what's the best moment of the game so far, gentlemen? Now, I'll start off with you, Jacko. What's your moment of the game so far?
Yeah, so as I alluded to before, only 2 sports have been played so far, but the USA versus Sweden game, USA powerhouses of women's football, got humbled by Sweden 3-0. That was just astonishing to see. If you know how good the US soccer team are, with the likes of Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Carly Lloyd, and I'm gonna just the superstars they have.
Full of stars, yeah.
Yeah, it's a team full of stars, and they got humbled 3-0. So that was pretty astonishing to see. That is a big moment. Harps?
Australia's group opponents, of course, as well. I've actually, of course, there haven't been too many sports, so I've got a double dip on the football or the soccer, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it football. That's what the official term is in the Olympics. Jackson actually wanted to claim this one himself, but I got to it first.
Pulled rank.
So this is my moment of the games so far. So I'll tell you, for anyone that doesn't know soccer, football too well, you don't often see a team scoring 3 goals and losing a game of football. And you definitely don't see a team scoring 3 goals and losing a game of football by 7 goals. So Zambia are the 104th best national team in women's football. They came up against a Dutch side from the Netherlands, of course, 100 places higher than them. Barbara Banda fired in a hat-trick for the Zambians, which was would have lived long in the memory, probably still will, except the game ended on a bit of a sour note for the Zambians. So the Netherlands really, they inflicted the Zambians with the worst ever defeat. It was the highest scoring game in Olympic women's football history, and it was 10-1 with 8 minutes to go before 2 goals from Barbara Banda. So it finished 10-3. Just a crazy game. Lockie, your favourite moment?
Yeah, well, see, I thought a bit outside the square for this one. I think my favourite moment was even a couple of days before the game started, was when the athletes first started arriving to the village, and it was the beds, it was the cardboard beds. I couldn't bloody believe it. And then I couldn't believe it. There were so many different rumours sort of floating around that it was to stop athletes sharing a bed together. But our very own Rachel Lynch, she debunked that theory. She put up on her Instagram yesterday 3 of them standing quite comfortably on the bed. And it turns out that it's actually for environmental reasons that they've used the cardboard beds. But, I just loved all the rumours that were floating around then. So, yeah, that's probably my moment of the game so far.
Very, very interesting. Jackson?
Yeah, so what we're going to do now is events we're sort of looking forward to. We are at the start of the Olympics, so I say start in brackets, with the Olympic ceremony going on tonight. So what are your events you're looking forward to, Lockie?
Yeah, so it has to be the team, the Boomers Basketball Australia. You know, we've never medalled before. Came so close in 2016, unfortunately losing in the bronze medal game. But yeah, so I think just seeing them, you know, we've got such great NBA talent. We've got Patty Mills, Matty Dellavedova, the recent NBL signing, but with Matisse Thybulle. We've got such a great team, and I'm just super keen to watch the boys hopefully get a medal. But with the way that they've gone in the practice matches, you know, I don't think we're aiming for bronze. I think we're aiming for gold, which is just a great place to be. And what about yourself, Jacko? I'm interested to know your take on what the event you're looking forward to.
I mean, I am definitely keen for the basketball. I'm not huge into my NBA. I'm all about it, so I'm very keen to see the basketballs hopefully go for gold. But as I sort of alluded to earlier, the rugby sevens, our ladies won gold last time. So can they back it up? That's what I'm really hoping for. Harps, what about you, mate?
That's going to be absolutely fascinating. Now, some of the events on today, before I answer the question, for the people, there aren't too many events on today because it is the day of the opening ceremony, but we can see some Aussies in action. In the archery, we've got Alice Ingley, David Barnes, Ryan Tyak and Taylor Worth in the kind of ranking rounds, and we've got men's quadruple sculls and women's double sculls for the Aussies, some other events as well that not involving Aussies, but who really cares about those, you know. But the event I'm looking forward to, of course, Lockie knows very well, our listeners know very well, that I am the unofficial, although I'd like to be the official, #1 ticket holder of water polo in Australia. It is a sport. It's the sport of dreams, really. It's the perfect sport, you know. It's like, I love it. I love it. And speaking of water polo, Lockie, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I reckon you're more of a mascot than a #1 ticket holder at this stage, Harper, but you're definitely supporting the sport.
Yeah. Well, one-man cheer squad for water polo, by the looks of it. There aren't too many prominent water polo figures in the media. And speaking of water polo, Lena Mihailovic, our very recent guest, you can go check out that interview. It was actually really good. Lockie and I interviewed her. She is starting. It's tomorrow, I believe. So we wish the best of luck to Lena Mihailovic and the Aussie Stingers up against Canada. That will be an absolute cracker. But before we kind of talk about some more stuff, I'm going to throw over to an interview I did with a journalist at the Asian Game. He's actually a bit of a Japanese correspondent for this Tokyo Daily series. You'll find out where he is right at the start. He goes by the name of Scott McIntyre. He's a great guy. Enjoy this little interview, guys. Scott McIntyre, welcome to the show, mate. Thanks for coming on. How are you and where are you?
Yeah, no, thanks for the invitation, firstly. I'm in Tokyo, the Olympic city, which I've seen some stories that the streets are deserted. So I came to the middle of Shibuya to show you the streets are not deserted. They're actually full of people. And it's important to remember that Tokyo is under a state of emergency as well. So I'm not quite sure what form of emergency people are adhering to. Yeah. But it's not a particularly severe one. So, yeah, I mean, the Olympics are going on, no supporters. But if you travelled on the trains are packed. As you can see, the downtown areas of the city are packed as well. Yet, I don't quite sure. I don't know how you can connect that you can have 200 people on a train carriage, but you can't have people safely spaced out at these Olympic events. But it's one of many curiosities around the game and probably around the whole reaction to the pandemic in Japan, which is a bigger topic that we don't need to get into. But yeah, there's people out and about, but there won't be people in the sense of, certainly not in Tokyo. There will be in the other venues up in Sapporo, where some of the football is, in Miyagi, where some of the football is, and I think in Kashima, and some of the aquatic events down to the south of Tokyo as well. But yeah, the main stadium, there'll be no one there, which is a shame. But you probably picked up on a little bit of the mood and the atmosphere back in Australia, that people don't really want the games going ahead in this time. So yeah, it's a conflicted state of affairs in the capital that's busy here when you're here. But if you're watching outside, you think the streets are as deserted as they are in the stadium, but that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, I think we've heard it all before, but strange times, especially over there at the moment. Have you got any restrictions at all, other than like not being able to attend sporting events and big events, but any restrictions day-to-day life?
No, I mean, well, there's recommendations from the government. Japan has a rather curious kind of corona that there seems to be a vampiric form of the disease where apparently it only comes out at 8 o'clock at night. So the government encourages shops to close at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, stop selling alcohol an hour before that. And they'd like people to be off the streets, but it's fairly futile. So what they've done is, a lot of the bars and restaurants are actually closing, but that's just created a kind of mob of street parties. So it's I think it's probably more problematic, all these people out and back. Because the other thing is, of course, it's summer here and it's unbelievably hot and humid. Anyone that's been in North Asia at this time of year knows. I think it was 34, 35 today, and the humidity is the real different thing to Australia. So people want to be outside, and I think of course, people are adhering to these guidelines. As I said, non-enforceable, but a lot of people are just going, yeah, to hell with it. We'll go outside and we'll have a couple of beers from the convenience store, which is a cheaper option anyway. So there's no legally enforceable restrictions in place to answer your question. And in many ways, you wouldn't, certainly in the daytime, it's basically life as usual. The football here still has fans going to the games. It's now down to 5,000 in Tokyo, but 10,000 at other venues across the country. So I believe the baseball does as well. So, you can go to cinemas, you can spend time, like I said, shoulder to shoulder with all the employees of Toshiba and Nissan and Mitsubishi in the daytime, but you can't have a beer inside after 8 o'clock, and you can't go to watch the Olympics. So it's a curious state of affairs all around.
Yeah, big time. And I remember being in Japan myself just before COVID really kind of completely took over, 2019, 2020, kind of December, January period. And even as a tourist, you could feel a sense of excitement about the Olympics. Every street corner had some kind of poster. It was just kind of, you could feel the excitement in the air, even 6 months out then. So is there still a sense of excitement at all now, or is it just kind of not dread, I suppose, but kind of disappointment that it's going ahead and anger?
Well, I think there's a sentiment that, that a large majority of the people don't want it to go ahead because, as there has been in Australia, there's been issues with the vaccine rollout here, probably even slower than Australia, to be honest. There's concerns around medical staff being seconded to work on the Olympics. They basically need to be on standby. There's been, I think, already dozens and dozens of cases of athletes, media, other personnel bring in some form of this virus into Japan. That hasn't helped. And then there's been all these scandals really for the past year. I mean, the former head of the organising committee had to step down over sexist remarks that he made. Just last month, we had the guy who composed the Olympic tune have to step down after some bizarre comments that he admitted to when he was in school, all sorts of bullying activities. And then just yesterday, the director of the opening and closing ceremonies also was forced to resign after some weird, he was a former comedian, some weird anti-Semitic comments that he made. There was another creative director who came up with an idea to dress an oversized model up as a pig and call her the Olympic, and that came out as well. So there's all these really kind of terrible scandals that have been brewing around the games, and right to the very core of the competition itself. So you factor that in, you factor the fact that nobody can go and watch it. The cases are on the increase. I think there was 1,500 cases just in Tokyo yesterday of the virus. So you've got all that and all these kind of scandals factored into it. So, I can tell you from the people that are around me now, no one's discussing the javelin or the 10-meter rifle or something like that. So, there will be, of course, some interest in the bigger events. Obviously the football, baseball, which is popular here, and the events that the Japanese themselves are in. But the discussion in the media here, on news, online, this is one of the few countries that still has evening newspapers, by the way, in newspapers as well, is all about really the scandals that have been going on around the games, rather than the things themselves, and it actually kicked off yesterday. There were softball games yesterday, there was football yesterday, and today as well, and there's a whole host of things tomorrow as well. So there's not so much talk, about the games, about the competition and the sports, and there's certainly no festive mood on the street that they're hosting this thing. There's festive mood on the street just because it's summer and people want to get outside. And there's girls dressed up in some strange costumes over here, Harper. I'll show you behind my thing. So I don't think they're into the javelin either. So there's certainly no Olympic buzz, but there's confusion. I think anger and disappointment that it is going ahead.
And your own opinion, do you think it should be going ahead?
In one way, it's not for me to say because I'm not Japanese. So it's an issue for the local people themselves. I think personally, the most sensible thing would have been just to push it back 4 years, to have nothing in 2020 and just pick it up after that. This becomes 2024, wherever 2024 was becomes 28, and so on you shuffle. I mean, we've seen with other sporting events, the Asian Champions League that was on recently, where the teams that came back from Uzbekistan with all these cases as well. And there has been cases here, there will be cases here. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think it's the ideal time to be having any sort of, global jamboree. And particularly with the background to it, where, if health professionals are being taken away from the local people and, put in the exclusive service of IOC members, that's probably not the right situation to be in at this point in history either.
Now, I just before we wrap up, I do want to talk a bit about the sport because it is a big sporting event. That's what everyone knows it for. Of course, people are going to know you for your football, your soccer, journalism, whatever you want to call it. But apart from the football, what's the big event you're kind of looking forward to watching on your TV?
I'd like to see the host nation do well. So obviously the sports that they would traditionally do well in, judo, karate is in this tournament, and some of the newer sports as well, skateboarding, which Japan should also do quite well in. The climbing event, I'm not quite sure about the rules or whatnot about that, but that's one to look forward to as well. And yeah, as you said, obviously, for me, I'm a football guy, as you are, and probably a lot of your audience is. So I'd love to see Australia do well, starting things shortly. We saw the Matildas do well in their opening match. I think, if you look at some of the players that other nations have sent, it's probably not as strong as it could be. I mean, France are always going to be France, but it's a France light in many ways. And I saw Argentina play in a couple of warm-up matches here earlier this year, and they looked dreadful. The Dandenong under 12s wouldn't have beat them. So so I think there's hope that both the men's and women's can do well in the football, and it's the Olympics, right? So you just want to see sports that you don't get to see. I mean, I want to see fencing. I want to see. I don't know if you know this story. There was a weightlifter from Uganda who absconded upon arrival, and he was on the run for a couple of days. So I don't know if he's coming back and competing now. That would be an amazing thing to see. So yeah, the sports that we don't see are obviously of interest, but it's a weird thing because I'm here in the host city, but you can't really get too close to the stadium, and you certainly can't get into any events outside of those ones that are far, far away from Tokyo. So it's a bizarre feeling. I almost can't tell if I'm not back in Australia watching on Australian TV. Maybe the standard of commentary is a little bit poorer here and slightly more difficult for me to understand in Japanese. But outside of that, I don't get a sense really that I'm here or in Australia, which is a bizarre state of affairs as well.
Yeah, and I know they had invested so much money, poured so much cash into building the Olympic Stadium, and it's like basically all gone down the drain. It's really tragic, really, if thinking deeply about it. But as we've said, the times we're living in now, can't really do too much about it. But of course, you would have been alive for Sydney 2000. I'm not sure if you've went there or kind of experienced much of it, but is this kind of your first experience being in the city of an Olympics?
Yeah, no, I remember Sydney, and I think it was a different vibe. I mean, even obviously I've been to a lot of football tournaments and major ones at that around the world, and you get a real sense of, more than the sport itself in some ways, the it's the people, it's the fans that you have coming, and that's something that we don't have here because I actually passed someone with an accreditation just before, and I got the shock of my life. It's like, because foreigners haven't been able to come into Japan for months, and it's a weird thing seeing, because obviously Tokyo's a major tourist city, and now you see predominantly Japanese faces. So yeah, to see a foreigner with an accreditation, I thought, what the hell is going on here? It's a weird thing. So I think it's that atmosphere and vibe that is probably the most disappointing thing. It's the fans that, and obviously fans at Olympics are different to fans at football, but it's the fans that bring that energy, bring that vibrancy, bring the party atmosphere, and there's none of it. So that's why I said you don't really get the sense that you're in the middle of this major sporting event, which is a shame. Even you touched on the stadium, there was all sorts of scandals with the construction of that. They had to scrap the original plans and rebuild it again. Obviously, it's going to be used for football and other events as it continues. But yeah, the amount of money that's going to be lost by the Japanese taxpayer is extreme. And for now, an event that most of them don't want. It's a really strange series of events, but we've seen a lot of strange events over the past 2 years. So this is just one that we have to get through, try and enjoy what we can on TV. Hope there's no more scandals. I saw there was someone arrested for cocaine. Yesterday, an equestrian from
provisionally suspended Jamie Kermond. Yeah.
What do you call an equestrian? Is that what they're called? An equestrian?
Show jumper, I think. I think that's what you call
show jumper. Yeah. So show jumper. So hopefully there's no more of these cases.
Well, fingers crossed, but I wouldn't put it past the kind of world at the moment for something crazy to happen in a couple of days from now, even. But just before we wrap up, Scott, I'd love to talk to you.
You don't pick show jumpers as recreational drug users, though.
Very, very true. Very true. Yeah, that was a really strange story, wasn't it? But yeah, that I guess a strange story always comes around at some point in the Olympics. But honestly, Scott, I'd love to talk to you kind of all day about this stuff. It's been a blast. But just quickly before we go, can you tell people where they can find your work? I do a lot of stuff on football, on Asian football with the Asian Game podcast, and we have a website as well. So yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about Asian football, obviously the biggest confederation in the world. We hope all the Asian teams do well in the football here in the Olympics as well. And there's so many great stories in Asia, so much passion around the game, so much colour, so much talent, coaching talent, playing talent, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we try and just shine a little bit of a light on what's happening right across the continent. So yeah, we'd love to have you listen to the podcast, The Asian Game, or come and read some of the stuff on the website, the theasiangame.net as well. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and look forward to talking to you some more over the coming days. Yeah, just for the listeners, couldn't recommend the Asian Game podcast and the website highly enough. If you're a football fan, or even if you're not a football fan, you just kind of want to expand your horizons in sport, really give it a look. And yeah, thanks very much, Scott. Look forward to catching up later on.
Thanks, Harper. Cheers.
Geez, Harps, that was an absolute ripper. Thanks so much for jumping on, Scotty. I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to hear you more throughout the games and our other correspondents. That was absolutely awesome.
Thanks very much again for your time, Scott. It was a great little chat. But just before we go, every day throughout our Tokyo Daily series, we are going to have a bit of a question of the day for all our listeners, our viewers, everyone, our followers, and for ourselves, of course. We're going to post it up on our socials, but first we are going to answer it here. So I'm going to put this forward to you guys. A very, very general one. You can open-ended answer. What is your favourite Olympic moment ever? Jackson, do you want to go first?
Well, I obviously misread this question. I didn't go my favourite Olympic moment ever, but my favourite Olympic memory was watching Steve Hooker in the 2008 Olympics. I remember I was probably about 10, as Lockie mentioned before. But I wouldn't have had the TV on. I reckon I turned the TV on just as he was going, and him to get a gold medal in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, jumping a vault of 5.96 meters was pretty amazing to watch. Lockie?
Yeah. So I thought about this question long and hard, and as you boys know, I'm a massive history buff, and I also absolutely love a story of somebody showing up their father. So for mine, it had to be Hercules in the first ever Olympic Games. You know, he put on
classic.
an absolute clinic, the chariot racing, the sprinting, just everything. And his dad was watching up in Olympus Zeus, and I just think Hercules showed that he was the best at the games. So I don't think anybody can forget that moment. That was simply phenomenal. Harps?
We're talking about 2,000 years later, so it's absolutely one to remember, unforgettable stuff. And yeah, none of us have really gone for a moment, but you guys, people who want to answer this question themselves, can go for a moment or just a general memory or a performance throughout the games, which is what I've done. I'm going to talk a little bit to you about the great Shane Gould. Have you guys heard of Shane Gould?
Nah, man.
Haven't heard of Shane Gould. Well, I think we're definitely a demographic and a kind of in the age bracket, a bit below old Shaney. She's a woman, of course. So she was actually born in Sydney on the first day of competition of the 1956 Games in Melbourne. Just 15 years, when she was 15 years old in 1972, she went to the Munich Games. She won 3 gold medals as a 15-year-old, 200-metre freestyle, 400-metre freestyle, and the 200-metre medley, won a bronze and a silver as well, just to kind of ice the cake, I guess. And she set a world record in gold medal, all 3 of her gold medal races. Still the only person to ever hold every world freestyle record. It is just absolutely nuts. I could just list off all the records she had. First swimmer, male or female, to win Olympic medals in 5 individual events in a single Olympics. And but kind of the story took a bit of a turn when she retired from competitive swimming straight after that Olympics, just because the media pressure and the kind of weight on her shoulders was just way too much. She came back to masters swimming a decade later, absolutely smashed it. Legendary woman, legendary athlete, the great Shane Gould Lockie.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome, Harps. It's good to see that you can still use Wikipedia. So yeah, I just absolutely love that.
Yep, we love a bit of Wikipedia over here. Jackson, anything else before we go?
No, not really. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm hoping to be on a few more episodes during this month, so go Aussies.
Exactly. Lockie, anything else?
Just thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll stick around for the ride.
Yeah, remember to subscribe and like and do everything you can to support the show, support the podcast. You know what all those things are. 5-star review would be great as well. We'll see you tomorrow, as we will every other day during the games, for another Tokyo Daily by Where Do We Begin. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys.